Some impacts of the Russia-Ukraine conflict on the world's situation. First, the global economic recession. One is the Russia-Ukraine conflict and sanctions imposed by the US and Western countries against Russia. Not only affects the economic activities of Russia and Ukraine, but also negatively impacts the global economy. According to the Fortune magazine, USA, October 2022, the Russia-Ukraine conflict caused the global economy to lose about $2,800 billion in many forms. Inflation, rising fuel and food prices, supply chain disruption, crippled tourism industry and many other consequences. Meanwhile, the World Bank, WB, forecasts that the global economy will enter a period of serious and prolonged recession. The growth rate will decrease from 3% to 1.7% in 2023, the lowest level since 1991. Service industries, especially tourism and aviation, are just starting to recover from the COVID pandemic. -19 is forecast to continue to face downward pressure if the conflict continues. The growth rate of advanced economies is expected to decrease from 2.5%, 2022, to 0.5%, 2023, of which the growth rate of the euro area, Eurozone, will decrease from 1.9%, in 2002, to 0%, in 2023. This is the largest global recession since the Great World Economic Crisis of 1930. The US, Eurozone and China, which have the most influence on global economic growth, are experiencing a recession. Serious decline. Inflation rates in the US and European Union, EU, member countries have increased significantly. At its peak, inflation in the US reached 8.3% and in the Eurozone, inflation reached a record 10.7%. Second, this conflict is a strong blow to the globalization trend. Along with providing weapons to Ukraine, the US and its allies have sought to suffocate the Russian economy with harsh sanctions. However, these measures have the downside, which is affecting the global free trade system. According to Mr. Patrick Pouyan, CEO of Total Energies Energy Group, France, sanctions, such as the order to impose ceiling prices on Russian oil by the group of leading developed industries in the world, G7, and the EU has put an end to the global market for fossil fuels. In addition, major powers are breaking free trade principles in many different places, such as the US restricting the sale of certain types of computer chips to China, or India's suspension of rice exports. Noodles. These actions are a further blow to the global supply chain, which is extremely fragile due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The trend of a divided world had appeared before 2020, but the double shock from the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict accelerated this process. Third, the world order is in the process of profound transformation. In June 2022, 4 months after launching a special military operation in Ukraine, Russian President V. Putin announced, "The unipolar world order is over." That is the world order that took shape after the end of the Cold War. America is considered the only pole after a fierce confrontation lasting nearly half a century with the Soviet Union, formerly. During nearly half a century, the world became chaotic with bloody wars in the Persian Gulf, the Balkans, Afghanistan, Iraq. From Russia's point of view, the Russia-Ukraine conflict has destroyed the Western geopolitical game, wanting to turn Ukraine into a long-term threat to Russia. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has changed US foreign policy priorities. Currently, the United States must focus all its energy on resolving the crisis in Europe, so it does not have enough strength to focus on the important task of containing China's growing economic and military power. Fourth, the global political and security situation is changing dramatically. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has increased tensions and confrontations around the world and pushed the world into a state of multipolar chaos. In December 2022, EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Josep Borrell emphasized, "We have moved to a chaotic multipolar world, where everything like energy, data, connectivity infrastructure, and migration are all weapons." Geopolitics is the key point. Everything is now related to geopolitics, in which Russia, China, and India are emerging centers of power with a special position, refusing to be marginalized in the security system. Global security. In case the conflict ends, both Russia and Europe will fall into a state of weakness and exhaustion, and then it is likely that the US and China will be the biggest beneficiaries, especially in controlling world. Fifth, promote countries to pursue the formation of new alliances centered on the US and China. That means, the world's situation is gradually shifting from a chaotic multipolar order to bipolar in the direction of world power shifting from west to east, from north to south. Central Asia, Caucasus, Balkan, Africa, Latin America regions, and Asia-Pacific are becoming competitive battlefields, vying for influence of major countries, such as the US, China, Russia and the EU. They sponsor infrastructure projects or notable agreements on trade, military or diplomatic cooperation to attract countries. This puts developing countries, especially small and medium-sized countries, under pressure to choose sides. At the same time, it continues to pose an urgent need to promote reform of multilateral institutions, as well as strengthen the international legal system with binding sanctions, helping to regulate the behavior of countries. In international relations. Sixth, international relations are clearly divided, especially relations between major countries. This is shown in the following pairs of relationships. US-China relations are sinking deeper into difficulties. The two sides disagree deeply about the origin and cause of this conflict. Moreover, the US has repeatedly affirmed that the Russia-Ukraine conflict does not change its perception that China is the US's most important strategic opponent. The conflict also accelerated the disruption and separation of technology and key production chains between the two sides. The US passed the Chip and Science Act, proposing Chip Alliance 4 to deal with China's technological rise. Impose many restrictions on the export of high-tech products to China, especially semiconductors, engaging allies in a chip war with this country, build key supply chain alliances. The conflict also significantly impacted trade and financial cooperation between the two countries. The US introduced strict sanctions against Chinese businesses related to Russia, through the amended Competition Act, launching the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF. In the face of financial sanctions against Russia, China determines that improving its capacity to prevent and counter US financial weapons is an important and urgent task. This shows that the trend of separation in US-China relations has spread from the real economy, technology, production chain, to the virtual economy, finance, banking.